Monster Hunter as a series is in a bit of a weird spot. With the release of Monster Hunter World and Monster Hunter Rise, the franchise has attained true mainstream status. But despite that, much knowledge regarding the older games, the origins of certain mechanics, and even in-game story and lore remain mostly inaccessible to most players, locked away in Japan-exclusive art books or in missable text boxes only true weirdos read. Hi, I am that weirdo. I'm very into the lore and details of Monster Hunter, and usually present them in documentary fashion. But some tidbits are too obscure, too small, and too incidental to make it into full episodes. So I thought it might be a nice idea to include them into a more casual video like this. Today, we'll go over some of the obscure lore of Monster Hunter, small details and anecdotes you have probably not heard of before, as well as some juicy behind the scenes stuff. If that sounds interesting, stick around. But first, a quick word from our sponsor today. Story time. When I first moved out, I expected many challenges and responsibilities. What I did not expect was just how exhausting it is to come up and prepare an actually good dinner meal every day. You'd think just having ideas for good food and buying the stuff you need would be pretty easy, right? But to be honest, it was giving me a lot of anxiety in those first few months when I left home. That's where services like HelloFresh, the sponsor of this video, can really help. HelloFresh makes home cooking easy and fun. Once you sign up and choose one of their meal plans, they'll not just send you detailed recipes, but all of the ingredients you need, pre-packaged and ready to go. Whether you are struggling to find the right meal plan for your 2023 diet goals, or you are getting tired of eating the same 3 meals every week and just want some variety or flavor, HelloFresh's got you. All ingredients are fresh and go from farm to plate in no more than 7 days maximum. It can even be cheaper than takeout depending on your situation. If any of this sounds like something you'd enjoy, try HelloFresh by clicking on the link in the description. You'll get a limited time discount as well as free shipping, so no time like the present. And of course, thanks again to HelloFresh for sponsoring this video. Speaking of, back to the content. Let's start with something light and fun. You've seen a Rathalos before, I'm sure. But have you seen this Rathalos before? This pixelated tube is its original design used up to Monster Hunter Freedom Unite. You may be aware that Monster Hunter Tri and 3 Ultimate sneakily redesigned many old and returning monsters to update them and make them a little more convincing and distinct, which is seen best with the Wraths. But that's not an obscure lore fact. You can tell they look different by just looking at them, duh. But did you know that this difference actually has a lore explanation as well? Both Hunter's Encyclopedia 3 as well as Monster Hunter World Complete works establish the concept of regional species. The same monster can look and act slightly differently based on its regional population, a distinction that is even more subtle than subspecies. These tube-shaped wraths are thus just Shrade region wraths, while the wraths in other regions are the more modern redesigns. Another explicit example is the Deviljho, whose New World regional species is much spikier than its Old World counterpart. This can be applied to behavior as well. New World Nargacuga don't fly, while Old World Nargacugas do. Now, this explanation isn't waterproof. Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate specifically throws a massive wrench into it, allowing you to fight the modern Wraths in the Shrade region among other inconsistencies. But for what it's worth, I think it's a really cute attempt to canonically explain the aesthetic redesigns the series went through. Do you have a favorite monster? How much do you like it? Do you buy plushies of it, have framed pictures of it, sleep with it? Don't answer that last one. Either way, of all monsters in the series, few have as dedicated of an in-universe fanbase as the Anjanath. Yeah, I know. Through the description of its master rank armor in World and its high rank armor in Rise, we find out that these armors are based on those worn by a tribe of Anjanath worshippers. Specifically, the high rank armor describes a tribe that seems to generally wear Anjanath armor and clothes made from its material. This tribe is characterized as bold, manly, fearsome, and powerful. Then, in master rank, the armor begins describing not tribesmen, but devotees and worshippers, and the master rank Anjanath vambraces in Sunbreak then confirm that these are the same people, a tribe of Anjanath worshippers, a sort of warrior cult. It's kind of crazy that such a great concept is relegated to just being flavor text, but hey, I'll take it. We don't get any extra information per se, but we can glean a few more morsels through observation and deduction. The main thing is that these Anjanath worshippers nonetheless wear Anjanath material, meaning that they do probably hunt Anjanaths despite their faith. It's possible that this tribe fights Anjanath as a sort of ritual, or even a rite of passage. Perhaps it would be similar to the real-life Ainu people of Hokkaido, who revere bears as mighty beings that they hunt and sacrifice in a ritual to let their souls return to the spiritual homeland they believe in. There's also some information there about how they're very protective of their clan, as their armor describes them striking down anyone who endangers their way of life, so they are probably at least a little bit isolationist. And the mention of manliness and fearsomeness does give it the idea of a might makes right kind of society, but at that point we're just fanfictioning. Either way, an extremely cool concept hidden in a very innocuous spot, and the thing that inspired this video. If something this cool can hide in a place this innocuous, what else is out there? The world of Monster Hunter is extremely dense, with many places and regions that are only briefly mentioned and never shown directly. This is quite tantalizing for fans like me. Will we ever see the Meteor Lake of Meruchita, the high walls of Verudo? While we wait for some or any of these locations to become tangible, we can look to quest descriptions as one way to explore the world of Monster Hunter. These very missable pieces of flavor text hold a surprising amount of funny and interesting information. One of my absolute favorite tidbits is the existence of the Fire Nation, or Fire Country, depending on translation. Mostly appearing in Monster Hunter Tri and 3 Ultimate, the Fire Country is an unnamed nation that is surrounded by volcanoes. If we look at the map we made of the Monster Hunter universe in another video, that would put them around or into the Erude region, since that is the only place in the Monster Hunter universe that we know of where volcanoes actually exist, outside of the New World, of course. Very little is known about these people, besides 3 things. They are very appreciative of expensive meats, and will complain loudly if deliveries of it are delayed. Their position in the volcanic region puts them into contact with many powerful monsters, such as the Agnactor and the Devil Joe. This leads to the Fire Country being ravaged somewhat frequently, as many of the quests you do get from them mention severe damage to the nation. And lastly, while they obviously would rather not be attacked, they also seem to see these challenges as opportunities for warriors to test their mettle and prove their worth. The urgent quest Into the Fire from Monster Hunter 3U specifically makes Devil Joe out to be a sort of rite of passage, something you have to do to prove yourself. So while we have very little actual exposition on this country, the little bit of incidental information we do get does characterize the Fire Nation as a fairly interesting place, one I hope we visit properly at some point in the franchise's future. You ever wondered what the word frontier in Monster Hunter Frontier is supposed to reference? You know, besides just being a cool sounding word? The term actually has some pretty expansive significance to the world of Monster Hunter. Because all games take place in hunting villages, It's easy to think that the entire world is just overrun by monsters. But actually, as the Hunter's encyclopedias tell us, there is a pretty stark divide between the areas we see in-game and civilized land. In regions with large human population centers, life goes on as normal. Most people living in these towns and cities will be born and die without ever seeing a single monster. The civilized regions of Monster Hunter are thus pretty much indistinguishable from early medieval life, with some fantasy elements, of course. But outside these safe areas lies the frontier. This is not one place, but a sort of umbrella term for all regions that fall outside the safety of organized human government and civilization. So, while the Shrade region has numerous civilized population centers, all the areas between those centers could be called part of the frontier. So far, almost all of the places we have seen in-game have been in the frontier exclusively, where hunting is the dominant culture and where monsters reign supreme. However, most places in the Monster Hunter world do rely on the frontier's production of monster materials for trade and the economy, so it is an interesting little disconnect between what we see in-game and what the larger world has to offer, and again something I hope that is shown a little better in future games. Also, shout out to Lutyrannus for letting me know about the frontier while I was in the middle of writing the Monster Hunter World video. That was such a mind-blowing moment, and I had to rewrite like half the script. It was wild. Thank you so much, my man. Now, this is not an in-game piece of lore, but a fun bit of development information. Designing any monster is a long and iterative process, with every creature going through multiple drafts until the finalized design is chosen and polished. We fans are lucky in that we can actually glimpse into this process, thanks to the various art books that have been released over the years. While there is loads to dig into here and I really recommend hunting these down, one of my favorite discoveries is that rejected designs are actually rarely discarded entirely, and are instead often recycled into other monsters, sometimes even many years after the original draft was created and rejected. For an early example, Illustrations 1 and Hunter's Encyclopedia G show off this draft for a fire-based Plesioth subspecies, which would later be picked up by the Monster Hunter Frontier team and turned into Lavasioth. There's also this early idea for a leech-like monster that looks like it might have inspired both Deviljho with its color scheme and Barlagual through its design and aesthetic. Look especially at the red seam across the monster's midsection. Or how about the fact that an old idea about having bipedal hippo monsters eventually gave us Kongalala and Rajang? The similarities are pretty obvious here. But by far my favorite example of this is the unlikely link between Gosharag and Tigrex. Back during the design process for Tigrex, one idea that was apparently floating around the office was to have its Arctic habitat influence its look and behavior much more. Namely, the Tigrex's face would be covered in frozen drool, which would give it a fierce and demonic appearance, almost like a mask. The player would then have to break that mask to reveal the Tigrex's true face, while the Tigrex could further enhance itself by freezing its drool on top of it. This was discarded likely around 2007, but would resurface all the way in 2021 with Gosharag, an Arctic beast with a demonic mask face, whose drool freezes to form ice structures on top of its body that the player can break off. While they've never outright confirmed this connection, and they probably never will because why would they, it is a fun little idea and definitely possible, especially since we know for a fact that they revive scrapped ideas for monsters from time to time. It's just such a fascinating look into the background processes of making a game and a fiction like this happen. Now, there are many factions and organizations in the world of Monster Hunter. Many of them we never truly get to see, but like with the Anjanath Cult, we get to at least hear about them through armor and weapon descriptions, as well as dialogue and external game info like the encyclopedias. Some of these factions also exist inside of the Hunters Guild. While most of the guild is made up of regular hunters, there is a special group tasked with slightly different responsibilities: the Guardians. They are essentially a police force whose main duty is not the hunting and slaying of monsters, but the protection and peacekeeping of human settlements. They wear a very distinct metal armor and function as the arm of guild law. While they are mostly seen around and associated with Dundorma, they are not actually unique to that city. Any guild city that is rich enough can maintain a standing force of Guardians. But within Guardians lies another, even more special group: the Guild Knights. Not to be confused with the Knights of Elgato. Guild Knights are an extremely elite group within the guild. Only 12 individuals can ever hold this title at once, and only the best of the best, the absolute pinnacle of both hunters and guardians, are granted this legendary name. Guild Knights have a unique position in the guild. While they do still undertake regular quests and also support their fellow guardians in domestic matters, they are also the only branch of the guild tasked with hunting humans. Guild Knights are bounty hunters and executioners in one, as they track, arrest, and kills those the guild deems criminals. This includes murderers and savages, but also poachers and rogue hunters. They are thus rightfully respected and feared, and their characteristic armor is so popular that many tailors have begun producing imitation uniforms that regular hunters can wear in a weird sort of cosplay. These imitations do not, however, bestow the power of a guild knight, naturally. These are just some of the fun little lore facts that many fans might not be aware of. It's always tough with Monster Hunter specifically, as years of fan canon and inaccessible lore books have muddied the waters quite a bit. But at the very least, I hope that you heard at least one lore bit today that you didn't know before. If that's the case, let me know in the comments which fact it was. Also, if you enjoyed this little video, let me know too so I can consider making more. But for now, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. As always, a very special thank you to all of our patrons, including Fiction Ape, Cini, Claire Meboon, Drexian, Geo, Jameson Tate, Makot02, Mr. Pyramid, Mr. Meander, Pablo Ponth, Pidi Fuego, Peroscoco, Person 212, Project Iceman, Vulgar Beast, Oak, Wood, Tree, Iron Camel, and Courage. Take care, everyone. I'll see you around.